guys. So we're going to do a mobility class today. So we're just going to do a short mobility class. I'm going to do going to try to stay within the 30-minute time frame for doing these mobility classes. That way, if you want to put a back and legs together, you can do that. Or if you just want to do a back one, you can do that. You don't feel like you have to do an hour-long thing. Tonight, I'm going to do just a I don't know what I really call it. It's like a combination of back and hips and legs. It's kind of a make the whole body feel good. It's just maybe it's my quick fix is something that is easy to do, and if you don't really necessarily have a targeted area that you want to target, but you just want to feel better, you want better posture, it's just something that I think is just a good overall make your body feel good. So this is primarily for our yogis who can't be in class with us. They know what to do. So yogis, you know how to open up the psoas, so go ahead and jump on that. While I talk a little bit, that's going to give you a little bit of extra time on your psoas while I explain to maybe some new yogis. So if you're new, you're likely not going to have these props at home. We have the peanut. The peanut is always the double ball. We use this for our spine, and we use it for our shins, and we use it for our forearms. And so we have that. We usually have 2 single balls. If you just have one, you can have a tennis ball. You can use a dog toy. Just a ball that's a little firmer. You don't want it to give too much. You want it to stay pretty firm. And then we usually have a spiky ball. This is usually we use for our hands and our feet, nowhere else. Unless you like that sort of torture on your body, we only use that for those things. And so, so if you only have one ball, you can do the psoas singular instead of together, which we have switched to doing it together, one for a time saver, and it's more comfortable. So we always, in every single mobility class that I do, open up the psoas first. That is, it's just a must because it is the game changer in functionability. So if you're a yogi and already on it, you're gonna get to spend some good time on it. At home, a good 3 to 5 minutes is really, really good. In class, we usually maybe spend 2 minutes on it. So the psoas is the only thing that connects the upper body to the lower body. And when you're laying on your belly, the body caves in right here. So we usually use blocks so that we can access that area. So the psoas lays deep in the pelvic bowl. So it's at the back of your pelvic bowl. So when you first put the balls in position, you're going to access the surface tissue. And that surface tissue needs to soften so that the balls can creep up into your pelvis area and get to the muscles that are at the back of that pelvic bowl, which is what we're trying to access. So that's why it takes a little bit of time to get into it. So if you wrap your hands around your hip bones and bring your fingers around those hip bones, right where those fingers are, you can push in, and it's soft tissue right there. So your hip bone is right off to the side, your pubic bone is down here, and your ribs are up here. So we want to stay off the ribs, off the hip bones, off the pubic bone. So this space right in here is all accessible. We also want to stay off the belly because there's a lot of organs there. So we don't want to compress any organs. We're working this soft tissue. If you got a deep tissue massage, somebody can access that for you and push deep in there. It's kind of uncomfortable to do to yourself, and also creates a little bit more tension up in those shoulders, so we don't love that. So we use these because these help access it. So when you put those in place, they go about right here. So they can go in this whole area right in here, along the side of the pubic bone, right inside of the hip bones, and right below the belly. And so we're just going to access that. So put yourself on a good playlist. You can listen to whatever you want. I've got some background music going on. That's one of the issues that we have with our videos is music, because if we play popular music, copyrighted music, we get cut out or cut off. So just kind of position that in place wherever that feels good. And I mean, I wouldn't say it feels good. After you start a good practice of this and do this for a while, it actually does feel good and is comfortable. But when you first start, everything is super tight and it doesn't feel good. So we use the blocks. You can also use a firm blanket, not a soft blanket. If you use a soft blanket, the balls are going to creep down into that blanket and you're not going to feel it as much. So then let your chest melt down to the floor, okay? So make sure you're not tensing up and pulling the booty up. You want everything to soften down and everything to relax. The legs are relaxed, the booty's soft, the belly's sagging. So I'm going to talk through most of this. Get your playlist going. We'll probably, when we do these videos, we have to have the music extra quiet or to where only we can hear. Otherwise, we have to find not copyrighted music to play, and that's just a whole big mess. So we'll share the link to our playlist in the comments below, and then you can either play the music we played during the video, or you can play your own music to it. Usually when I'm in class with my yogis, we usually have like sing-along songs. Not everybody sings along. I sometimes sing. But we play music that's kind of fun to listen to, kind of, take you back kind of music, that kind of stuff. So if you're new to this, the psoas is the only thing that connects the upper body to the lower body. And so it takes out a lot of trauma and stress. So everything runs through our hips. So everybody tends to have tight hips. Most people have tight hips. And usually a lot of people have low back issues right here. The psoas contributes to those low back issues. So if you're having low back issues, we always want to target that low back and roll out the low back and work that area, when actually it's usually the legs or the hips that's creating the low back issues. Now, for some people, they actually have something in their spine, something actually going on with their low back. But for most people, what I have found is the legs are the culprit of your low back issues. So hopefully through the course of these videos, you'll learn a lot about your body, and pay attention to how your body feels as you're doing this, because as you open up certain parts of your body, it's going to affect different parts of your body. So as you work on the legs, you're going to feel your back open up a lot more and feeling more comfortable in your back. So at any time, if this feels like it's opened up enough, you can move it to a different spot and work out a different spot in that area. I don't usually move mine around too much. I just kind of lay there. This is a good time when you're not focused on me to work your breath work and expanding the belly using your Ujjayi breath. So we're just going to take a few more breaths here. The more often you do this, the less time that it takes being on here. I always recommend you do this daily. This will help your posture so much and make your back feel so much better through your day. Just when you get up in the morning, just hop on these blocks for a couple minutes and you're good to go. So if you have one ball at home, you just do one side at a time. If you don't have blocks at home, stack some books or a very firm blanket folded up. Use your imagination, find some things to slide underneath there to lift you up and create this space for you. I'm going to take one more breath here. And when you're at home doing it, you can pause the video. You can linger here as long as you want. When you're in class, it's always a suggestion. You can still linger here as long as you want, but I think you just always feel pressured to move to the next thing so you don't miss something. But once you see the movement and what we're doing, we linger in it for a while, so it's not like you really have to watch the video to do it. You can pause the video, and then when you feel like you're done on that space, then forward the video to the next movement. And coming off of that. Okay, so the next thing that I usually like to do is the hip flexors. So the hip flexors and the psoas go hand in hand. Our hip flexors are right here. So right where you hinge in the hips, right there to the right on the top of the thigh. So this whole area right here. So right there. So when you hinge forward, you can hold the ball. That's where we're accessing, and that very top of the thigh. So what we do is we slide that right underneath that area. I have my toes tucked in the back, and then I shift my hips from side to side. Not front to back, side to side. And as you do that, that ball is going to roll over that hip flexor and almost feel like it's popping back and forth over a band. You can play around with it. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. It's just kind of moving in a way that makes you feel like you're accessing and hitting some areas that need some work. So I can slide way over to the side, let it come into my groin area and hit right off to the side of my pubic bone. And that gets that inner thigh, that top part of the inside of the, well, almost the hip socket there. And then I can even roll all the way over onto my hip and work the outside of the hip. So just back and forth. And we just do this maybe for a minute on each side. If you feel like you need longer and you want to linger there longer, pause the video and take more time. But remember, I'm just doing a quick fix to make your body feel good. When you get done, you'll feel amazing. Sometimes doing some of this stuff doesn't feel great in the process of it, but when you're done, you feel really good. Just a couple more breaths here, and we'll work the other side, and then I'll continue talking because I literally talk through all my classes. I had a yogi say that I never shut up, and I don't. I'm always instructing and always saying something. And let's switch sides. So in these classes, I call them tissue repair classes. So we're doing myofascial release work. And your entire body is wrapped in fascia. So fascia is what gives us our body its shape. So when you are looking at a piece of meat and you see the white ribbing running through it, that's fascia. So all of your bones, your muscles, your muscle fibrils, your organs, everything is wrapped in fascia. It's really protected. Fascia is not easily affected by outside force. So that's why you really have to apply some pressure and really work on areas to work out your fascia. And so what we do is not every part is going to be intense or uncomfortable. Those are healthy areas. If it's intense and uncomfortable, those are areas that need some attention. However, if there's a sharp shooting pain, you want to stay off of it and you want to work a different spot instead of that area. Sometimes, like I said, we will have trigger points in our body, so you'll hit something and it'll send a sensation or a pain to a different part of your body, and that lets you know that that's likely the source or the area of an issue that you have in your body. And sometimes when we feel the pain up in our shoulder might not be the pain. It might be somewhere in our hips or in our back or something like that. And you'll know when you find that trigger point. So we like to keep the fascia healthy because that keeps us from injuring ourselves. A lot of people can throw out a shoulder. They can pop a hamstring just by doing daily normal activities because their fascia is dehydrated. Hydrating fascia is getting fluids in your body, but that's not what does it. You have to have the fluids in your body to get the fluid to the fascia. The fluid is kind of what they call a nutritious liquid that surrounds our fascia, and it keeps it hydrated. And if it's dehydrated, it can get brittle and crack and create a lot of issues for you. One more breath here. And we're going to work open the spine. So we're going to grab our peanut next. So if you don't have a peanut, you can take a smooth ball and you can do one side at a time. And it's just going to run down the side of your spine on the muscle, not on your spine. We're going to keep the pressure off of the spine. That's what's great about the peanut, because the peanut automatically does that for you. So when you lay on it, you center it between your shoulder blades, and this crease right here keeps your spine lifted off of the balls. And then so this part over here applies pressure to both sides of your spine, the muscles on either side of your spine, because when you're the muscles around your spine is tight, it tends to draw you in like this. So what we're going to do is work down that spine so that we can be like this. And so we're going to plant that between our shoulder blades and slowly work back. Now if you have long hair, you're going to want to pull it out of the way, or any kind of hair hanging there, because this will wrap up in it and it'll rip it right out of your head, and it does not feel good. So you can have your body, your arms wherever you want. So we're going to take a couple breaths on each spot. So it takes a little bit of time to work down your spine. Don't be in a hurry with the spine. The spine needs some attention. And sometimes you can rock your body side to side to apply a little bit of pressure on each side of that peanut. Up here at the top of my shoulders, I usually don't feel very much. But once I go like an inch down, you're starting to get over those shoulder blades, and that's where it starts to feel intense. So you're going to take a breath or two here. So the arms can be up over the head. I usually like my arms about right here. I usually rock that side to side so I can apply a little bit more pressure on each side of that peanut. Making sure you're breathing. Also, we don't want this gap. You see this gap here under my back? We want those ribs falling down toward the floor. So it's almost like you feel your pelvis tipping up a little bit to keep the ribs and the back of the shoulder blades down on the floor. Because when you're pulling up, you're pulling tension into the body, so we want it melting down and relaxed. And so rocking side to side, you'll rock the upper body side to side until you get into the low back, and then you'll rock those knees back and forth. So take it down just a little bit more and find a new spot. And everybody has tender spots in different spots of their body. So your upper back might be more tender, and somebody else's lower back might be more tender. Somebody right in the center where their shoulder blades are might be more tender. In class, we always know whose is whose because there's noise. But I've been doing this for so long that it's not super intense for me anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, when we work out the shoulders, there's always a spot in my shoulder that's like super intense. It's always intense for everybody. And sometimes in the legs it can get a little intense, but for the most part, I'm not making a ton of sound anymore just because my body's getting used to it. My fascia is getting to a healthier place. But even as you get your fascia to a healthier place, we're always bringing injury back into the body through overuse. Keep working it down through overuse or underuse of that tissue. And so I'm starting to tip my knees side to side a little bit more. I'm right at the base of my shoulder blades. So you want to linger on the spots that are the most tender. Typically we want to stay away from those areas because it's uncomfortable. But those are the spots that you want to linger on because we want to work them out. Also, like we haven't really hit areas yet to where we're working on nuts. Usually when we get into the legs and the glutes and the arms, shoulders, we'll find knots in the body, and that's lactic acid, and we need to work that out. Lactic acid just doesn't leave the body, it needs to be worked out. Lactic acid is a knot that pulls up in your muscle, and toxins settle into that area, and it slows the blood flow to that area. So when we can release a knot that's in the muscle, you have natural length in that muscle. So sometimes when we have tight hamstrings or things like that, it's because of knots that are in those muscles. And so when we let that knot release, it'll give you some length in those hamstrings, and then you have less risk of injury to a hamstring or to that area that you're working on. So I don't take as long going down through my lower back. I usually spend, because for me, the upper portion of my back is the most tender part. If you're not feeling very much in the lower part, you can slide a blanket or a block or something firmer underneath there to lift that ball up, because your spine has a little bit of an arch in it, and so that it's harder for that ball to push up where it needs to be. You can also pull one knee in at a time or both knees in and apply a little bit more pressure to that area that way.
So just a few more breaths, finishing off the low back. And lift the hips, take that out, squeeze the knees up into the armpits. You're opening up the hips, roll out the ankles both directions. Feet on the floor, arms up above the head. Drop the knees to the left and pull your right hip forward. You're stretching that hip flexor and the psoas. Inhale the knees up and exhale to the right, pulling that left hip forward. Your chest stays up toward the ceiling. And rolling that up. We're going to continue on with the back. So foam roller. I like these really knobby foam rollers, but if you're new to it, this can be pretty aggressive. So a smooth one might be a good starter for you. This I love because all these little knobby pieces push up into the tissue and work into the muscle fibers a little bit better, but we don't want to cause bruising. So anything that you're doing, if you feel like it's so intense that it's bruising, you want to back off, because all that's doing is creating more issues for you to work out and to heal. So typically we will roll side to side, but sometimes I like to just knead out the back. Side to side is a more effective way, so that's an option to where you can roll side to side. But for today, going along with the flow that I want to do, we're going to start right at the top of the shoulders. Kind of support your head like a crunch, but let your head hang back. Don't pull your chin in. And then we're going to work the upper portion of the back. So from the top of the shoulders to the bottom of the shoulder blades. So just this upper section. Let your elbows wing out so it gets the whole span of your back. So there's no right or wrong way in this myofascial release. There are, however, more effective ways, and so we want to get you the best, the most, I don't know what words I'm trying to say, the most for your time spent on this mobility stuff. So sometimes a lot of people always want to roll front to back when they're using a foam roller, and while that kind of relaxes your muscles a little bit, it doesn't necessarily work up into the fascia as effectively and find knots and work out knots. So this is just kind of good for just kind of relaxing the tension in your back. But when we want to work knots, we would roll side to side, because then that would allow you to find those knots a little bit easier. We're going to work to the center of the back, so tuck the chin in just a little bit, but keep the body nice and relaxed. Don't squeeze it all in. So you're going to work from the bottom of the shoulder blades to the bottom of the ribs. Nice and soft. And slow movements. Don't be in too big of a hurry. You don't want to rush through it. You really want to work the tissue. And then to work the lower back, we're going to drop the shoulder blades down toward the mat. We're going to bring that foam roller right to the base of the back, right in the arch, so the booty's on the back side of it. So we don't want the booty on it. That's not what we're working. We're still in the back area right here. And then we'll draw those knees up, and elbows are on the floor and your hands are out to the side, and you're just going to tip the knees side to side. So as the knees come to the side, you get all the way over into that soft tissue, all the way over in the side body, and your hands catch your knees. And then that's going to allow you to go over pretty far without rolling off your foam roller. You can keep your feet on the floor too. It just hits different areas, so you can maybe start off there if you want. I like my knees up. It's just what I like, but you can do either one. I feel like it gets in that soft back tissue. We call it our Bengay area. And the commercials where you see that they're rubbing their back out on those Bengay commercials, that's the area that we're working. One more breath here. And bring it center, lengthen the legs out, and then just relax. You're going to let your belly expand, your ribs expand, a tiny opening up to the hip flexors. Make sure you're not clenching here, and you're getting a nice little back bend going here, opening up the spine. So you're just going to take a couple breaths here. One more breath here. Sliding those feet up, lift the hips, take that out. Anytime we do a back bend, we always counter the stretch. We pull the knees in, release the low back. And rolling that up. We're going to hit those glutes, finishing off that back side. You can use a foam roller or you can use a ball. I tend to like to use a ball for the glutes, but if I'm wanting to hit more space at one time and do a time saver, then you can use the foam roller, and you would kind of slide it over to where you're just using half of it, and you would roll side to side. I feel like the ball locates the knots a little bit better, but you can roll side to side on the foam roller. The ball, you just slide underneath your glute. So your glutes are it comes and attached to your low back, down to where your leg connects into your butt, and then over to the side. So this whole big area, not your peachy part, not just the bum area right here, but this whole area here is your glute. So we want to work that out. So as you're rolling that out, you're going to find knots, and you want to work those out. It'll feel like you're rolling over a speed bump. When I'm on my platform in my studio, if everybody's really quiet, you can hear it thumping whenever I roll over a knot. So the hamstrings run up the back of the leg, connects right into your glutes, and then the glutes affect the back. So everything is so interconnected. That's why working everything is wonderful, but in order to work every single thing in the body, you would need hours. So there are ways to hit particular things to just make the body feel good overall. And then I'm going to do videos that are going to target certain areas, like target just the legs or target just the shoulders or whatever. And then that way you'll learn to feel what it's doing for the rest of your body. When you work the legs or work the hips, your back automatically feels better. So most times when people say they have back issues, I say, let's work those legs. But we'll still always hit the back. But it's amazing that as you do this and you bring yourself up into a seated position, how much better your back feels. Because, like I said, everything runs through our hips. When the legs are tight, it draws our back forward. And so we want to make sure we're working out the legs. So just kind of working yourself around. There's no right or wrong way. If you're in class with us, everybody will be doing something different. Nobody looks the same on their mat when they're doing mobility work. So we're going to locate our hamstring. So once you work out the glute for a little bit, we're going to find the hamstring. So the hamstring is right underneath the glute. So right where the leg connects to the butt cheek, right there. So not in the glute, but right where the leg connects into the butt cheek, that's your hamstring. So I usually kind of lift up, lean my body forward, and I shift side to side. And if you feel something there, you're probably on your hamstring. If you're not feeling much and you feel like you're just rolling over muscle or your butt bone, you need to slide it down just a little bit. Because once you're leaning into that and you slide side to side, it's going to feel like you're popping back and forth over a band. That's your hamstring. You can just compress it and just sit on it, and you don't even have to move it side to side, and you're still going to work that hamstring. Also, if you have a hamstring injury, compressing that like this is going to be helpful for it. Helpful to bringing healing to it. It might be way too intense to roll side to side if you have an injured hamstring. We want to try to prevent those hamstring injuries because they take forever to heal from. So you can lean into that. The more you lean into that, the more you're going to feel that. You do want to keep the back of the leg relaxed though. Sometimes flexing this foot tightens all these muscles up here, so let that foot be relaxed, but you can still reach forward. One more breath here. Switching sides, working the glute on the opposite side. So remember, it goes all the way up to your low back, all the way over to the side, all the way down to where the leg connects into that butt cheek. We use such technical terms in our classes, butt cheek. It is amazing though, when you're rolling over this stuff, you have no idea how many knots are in there until you start locating them. It was funny because I was telling my husband he needed to roll out because he has knots, and he says, I don't have any knots, until he got on the floor and started rolling them out, and then he started finding all of them. Everybody has knots. So if you're doing this and you're doing this at home and you've got one side that's super intense and the other side that's not, roll out the side that's not and go back and work and spend more time on the side that's super intense. I mean, you don't have to spend equal amount of time on this. It's a little bit different than yoga moves. You want to try to balance out and spend the same amount of time when you're doing yoga poses on each side. However, when you're doing mobility work, if it's not an area that needs as much attention, you don't need to give it as much attention. But so we want to focus most of our attention on the areas that do need some time and attention. We always want to roll over healthy fascia to keep it maintained, keep it in a healthy place, but we don't have to constantly go over that. Okay, we're going to locate that hamstring. So slide back, find where it connects into that hip socket, and you can shift it back and forth if you want. Or you can just compress it, just leaning forward into that. So we're keeping it 30 minutes, so we've just done a few things. It's enough that when you stand up, your body's going to feel amazing. But we're going to finish off with the neck. I normally always finish off with the neck in our classes because it just helps you relax. A lot of our tension comes up into our shoulders and into our neck, so it's a good way to finish off. And I'm trying to keep the videos at 30 minutes, but I did do some talking at the very beginning before I got started. So we're just going to finish off with the neck. If you don't have a foam roller at home, you can use the single ball and place that at the base of the skull, right here off to the side of the spine. And you can just arms up above the head and turn your head in that direction and then switch it to the other side. If you have a foam roller, we're going to place that at the base of our head. So not down so low here to where your head's hanging back. It's almost like you're laying on a pillow. And then we're going to let the shoulders melt down. You can keep the knees bent, or you can fold them, or you can lengthen them. I usually like to lengthen mine because I want my body super relaxed. And then if you have a knobby one, those knobby pieces are going to push up into the base of your head. You're going to slowly roll it from side to side. So you're going to start over by the ear and slowly roll it to your left side. And you're going to relax, soften your breath. This is really great for tension headaches and sinus pressure. So if you have sinus issues, if you place a foam roller under here and just slowly work that side to side, you're going to feel it open up. So as you work on this side, you should feel that up in your sinus cavity, sometimes up through your temple, and it's releasing pressure. I'm not sure how it works for migraines, but I know this relieves a lot of headaches. We've had multiple yogis say that they came into class with a headache and they no longer have one when they leave. So super, super slow movement through the head because we want it to really work up into all of that tissue. Working it all the way to behind the ear. And then work it back to the other side. Super, super, super slow. When you get back over to that right side, if that's the direction you're headed, go ahead and roll it all the way over to the right side, taking your time to bring that up to seated. And when you do come up to seated, your spine should feel good. This easy pose, this is what we call when we sit like this is our easy pose, should feel nice and good. Your spine should feel upright, the hips should feel a little bit more open, the back should feel great. And when you get up and walk, you should feel amazing. So we're going to finish off with one cleansing breath. So exhale everything out. Big inhale, both nostrils. And a big exhale through the mouth. Namaste.